Hello, my name is Stephanie Suswell, and here is my differentiated instruction presentation for ED 512. Here is a list of the topics that will be covered today. Differentiated instruction is focused on the success of each learner. As educators, we must consider students of all backgrounds, discover their funds of knowledge, make connections with the students, and celebrate them at all levels and abilities. Differentiated instruction is the approach where we design instruction by seeing students for exactly who they are. Tomlinson and Moon state, the way in which students experience the classroom learning environments profoundly shapes how they experience learning. So, as teachers, when we create learning experiences for all that our students are, it is impactful to their learning. Our teaching approaches need to be as unique and varied as our students are. One size fits all teaching down the middle is not effective for all, nor is it respectful for our students. As I discuss differentiating and other topics, please note that there does not need to be a plan developed individually for each and every student. The goal of the greater design is to include resources, techniques, strategies, tools, devices, and supplies to meet the needs of all students. I am excited to share and elaborate further as you follow me on this presentation. Both of these quotes here are profound and they present concepts about differentiated instruction. I present them as important takeaways to remember when thinking about the idea of differentiated instruction with a colleague or with a student's family member. These ideas are essentially why we differentiate and how we will consider the learning needs and goals of students. For differentiation to be effective, teachers need to know for each student where the student begins and where the student is in the individual journey towards meeting the criteria of the lesson or unit. There needs to be varied and consistent and constant assessment, which will advise the teachers of where the students are. With full intention, both instruction and assessment need to be differentiated. Educators should not teach using a differentiated approach, and then when it is time to assess, use only one type of assessment. Assessments should be just as varied as the instructional approach. This chart found in our text and also at ascd.org is a wonderful tool to use as a desk reference when exploring differentiated instruction and how to use it in practice. As a pre-service teacher like myself, I noticed that it's going to be extremely useful as I begin my practice. Here in the middle of the chart, content, process, and products are listed as key elements of differentiated instruction. This illustrates what exactly can be differentiated in school. Content is knowledge, information, how it's delivered and shared with students. Process is how students will process information for their own understanding, and the product is how students' understanding is presented when conveyed. With differentiated instruction, students will be provided with many options classified as each. I will elaborate on the key elements further in this presentation. As differentiated instruction appears in classroom management, we use teacher inquiry interviews questionnaires to collect data to be artful and creative when planning differentiated instruction. Differentiated instruction is both an abstract and physical concept. We think about it deeply and then we plan for it before we see it in action. Next, I'm going to present some ideas and research about modifying schoolwork. Modifying schoolwork includes interviewing students, observing students, gathering the details, and then planning your differentiated instruction. And when I say this is a way that we modify schoolwork, we could just teach using our textbooks or maybe a lesson plan, but we really don't have, like, we should use differentiated instruction. So the modification is actually participating in this approach. In my own learning, I found that these three activities, approaches, and strategies are examples of creative thinking and ways to offer modifications to traditional student learning. Orbitals. For a student who has a GIEP or a student who is looking for more challenging work, or even an exceptional learner who has interests they may want to explore, orbitals are a good activity. Students will select topics to complete their orbital using a topic that is tied to the curriculum in some way. What is important to the student will be what the student will want to learn more about. So students will solidify their topic, and once they do that, the teachers will design rubrics, plan product types for assessments, and support the student by directing them to the necessary resources to complete a successful project that will benefit the student's learning. A jigsaw is a modified group project. And I like jigsaws because jigsaws give students the opportunity to be the expert. And some students need a task like this, a role like this, that will enhance their social skills learning because they will work with a group and carry knowledge back to work with others as the expert. Students can select the topic they wish to study in their expert group, and all readiness levels can learn together and make contributions as they are seeking information to take back to their home group. Another way that you can modify schoolwork is by addressing the standards in a meaningful way, such as using a project approach or project-based learning, where you pick a theme that all students can study across all the disciplines. Students will adhere, you will help the students adhere to the standards, but student inquiry will occur and students will learn more about topics since they will be included in multiple disciplines. Another way to modify schoolwork is to use checklists and planning pages as a checks and balances system to meet all the marks when your modifications are needed. And I think this actually will help teachers dive deeper into how to make the modifications and the adaptations because it will give you an opportunity to actually see what needs to be updated. Lastly, a way to modify schoolwork is to modify teacher thinking, teacher activities, incorporating some more creative thoughts, and making changes, doing more relationship building, examining your own philosophy about participating in new approaches, um, getting professionals to assist you with modifications if you need them to, keeping good records, checklists, stay organized, and pay attention to details. All of these things are what teachers do, and I'm looking forward to participating, incorporating these activities in my practice and these thoughts into my practice because I believe that these will help me be successful with my students. Now on to UDL, Universal Design for Learning. Universal design for learning is derived from the concept and term where architects created a design in the beginning that can meet a need and support all people for various different reasons. This was not part of the architect's original design, but it occurred at the design's inception. A UDL plan will already have accommodations and modifications built in this way so that it meets the needs of all students in the class. The three principles of universal design for learning are multiple means of representation, multiple means of engagement, and multiple means of expression. Multiple means of representation means how information is delivered. Multiple means of engagement is the motivation, interest, and keeping engagement of the students. And multiple means of expression is how students express understanding to the teacher or the class. The universal design for learning and differentiated instruction are connected. The multiple means of representation principle is connected to the content key element of differentiated instructions. This is where information is delivered to the students using visuals, models, textiles, larger text, videos, books, models, examples. This is the way that teachers share connections so the student can connect concepts to everyday life. This is where students will use their AAC. The next principle of Universal design for learning would be multiple means of engagement, which is the process part of differentiated instruction. This is when students' interests are stimulated. You provide materials and resources based on student background and identity. You provide supportive settings, and you provide a place where peers can work together based on interests. And lastly, the multiple means of expression, which is the product of differentiated instruction. And this is where you provide options for students to express themselves. For students who need physical action to answer questions, you make sure there's AT devices, switches, keyboards. You make sure there's low-tech post-it notes for students who may not be able to communicate with you in a traditional way. You allow for students to write. You allow for students to provide artwork. You let them journal. You provide them with projects where they can create a diorama or create posters. This is where you let students tell you what their understanding is. There are possible barriers that you may come across to your universal design for learning. For example, for gifted students, sometimes the teachers may let them help out more than they need to. And I know that it's good to let them help out their peers, but they should not be doing that more than they should. When creating centers or differentiated assignments, make sure that all the centers are equal and equal in creativity, equal in the actual products and tools and supplies that are in the centers. I know that the centers may have different activities, but the materials should be equal and one center should not look better than the other. Respect all students. Check in on students. Make sure that their AT or their AAC is working if it's electric. They may not give you the cues that they need help. You have to adhere to the student's SDI. That is a barrier you definitely have to overcome. And you also have to connect with families all the time. Now, looking into behavior, as a pre-service teacher, I found this resource to be helpful. These are guiding principles when considered serve as important steps towards the ability to solve problems independently when faced with challenges with student behavior. Teaching social skills. We teach social skills because deficits exist. Some students have a lack of motivation to be social. Some students never learned social skills. And some students know social skills, but they need assistance in delivery and when to use them. Children's social behavior is closely correlated with both social success and academic success, and students who have problems in either may also exhibit behavioral difficulties. And that is why we need to teach social skills. Ways we can incorporate social skills instruction is to identify and plan and figure out the need and plan on how to assist. We want to model as teachers, demonstrating the skills that the students need to acquire. And I do believe that the teachers are some of the best models of social skills, even just manners, please and thank you. Role playing, where students group up and take on roles. Everyone learns when role playing happens, and sometimes it's really fun for students to take on characters. Community building group activities. Incorporate community building activities to help teach social skills. Build your lesson plan design from the beginning using the UDL approach. So when you're teaching social skills, build it into your UDL lessons, because when you're teaching content, you can add a social skills component to it. And lastly, there's my reference page. Hopefully, you'll find some resources here that you can reference. Thank you for your time.